Hello and welcome to another episode of the CollabTalk Podcast, where we discuss the convergence of technology, business productivity, and collaboration culture. And my returning guest here is Mr. Norm Young. Hey, Norm.
Hello.
A Microsoft MVP and Power Platform Solutions Architect at AvePoint. And we're talking today. This is the third that I've done here for the podcast where we're talking about Ignite. But this one, we're specifically talking about takeaways around the Power Platform. There's a lot going on around the Power Platform as of late.
There is. And
yeah.
I'm not surprised that you're on your third episode of talking about Ignite announcements, because there were so many that I had to take a different approach this year and just focused on a few of the SharePoint ones of interest, but really just try and bring the filter of information down to the Power Platform, because that's where I tend to spend most of my time.
Well, you know that it's funny, like the Microsoft events, of course, coming on the collaboration side of things. It used to be like we go to the SharePoint conference, and so you'd have everything collaboration. A little bit of OneDrive. You talk a bit about Yammer, now Viva, but those kinds of things. But it was all collaboration centric, intranets, that side of things. And then when they kind of folded the multiple events and tech ed into one and rebranded it as Ignite, it then kind of diffused that. You were suddenly surrounded by people talking about interested in Windows and Azure and now with Power Platform. So there's a lot of content at these shows, sometimes not as in-depth as a SharePoint conference itself, or now the Power Platform conference. You get more depth in depth at the Power Platform specific conferences.
Right.
But this is the big one for Microsoft announcements.
Indeed. And I think this year's Power Platform Ignite announcements are starting to show a point of inertia that we've been seeing on the Power Platform administration side, where the premium offering, managed environment, is starting to get more teeth, and its bite is going to be more significant than what it has been in the past.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say that I know that we've been talking about this for the last couple of years as Microsoft has started to talk about adding governance capabilities in, across the board, not just Power Platform, but doing more like they did around migration. It's like, well, we have a rich collection of ISV solutions out there. Why are you going and, taking away business from the partners and adding that capability in? And so you've got to look at it from both sides. Like, customers are saying to Microsoft, why are you selling us something that then requires us to go to third parties for all of this capability? Like you need to be having integrated native experiences for some of the administrative capabilities. And so for somebody who, you work for an ISV, I work with primarily ISVs, multiple partners. I think you have to realize that while we're partners with Microsoft, we're also competitors. It's a co-opetition.
Yes.
To me, that's a nice way of phrasing it, but that we're, you have to constantly pivot and move based on what customers need. And I think that usually ISVs can move faster and out innovate what Microsoft can do, but things have really sped up.
Things have sped up. And I had always held the position that ISVs filled in gaps that Microsoft couldn't. And so it was less about competition and more about working in unison or being complementary.
Yeah. And most of the time, I think that's the case. But then you have the other side of that where the ISVs they have those unique features. And then customers ask, well, we want those unique features, but we want it also to do things which do more overlap what Microsoft provides natively. So
That's right.
it's there's always going to be some overlap there, but yeah. Anyway,
True. So, when the Power Platform first started evolving and they wanted broader platform adoption, uh, solutions like the COE starter kit were intended to fill that gap. And uh, I don't know if they would have ever expected it to have been as popular as that offering has turned out. And for the longest time, people consider it a native offering because it has the official endorsement, sponsorship, funding from Microsoft to build up that Power Platform based solution that can sit on top of a tenant's Power Platform installation and provide governance.
yeah.
But Power Platform, like any technology, has certain technical limits, and some of those technical limits, especially around Power Automate and the number of APIs it can call and its inability to effectively perform inventory of objects at scale, it's been a problem for larger enterprise type organizations.
Yeah.
And because it's a Power Platform solution, kind of needs some Power Platform practitioner skills to maintain it. And this isn't me talking ill of the COE starter kit. When you really look at it from end to end, it's amazing what it can do and where it's come from and its core functionality. Um, and so to offset that and to have something that does scale, we have the native offering, the premium offering of managed environments. And that dropped a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
And that required a premium license to take advantage of that. So if you were going to have an environment, which is a container inside of your tenant of Power Platform objects, uh, everyone connecting, developing, creating, whatever, would need that premium license. So that was always kind of like a barrier to adoption. Um, because you had to have everyone licensed. So organization adoption means everyone in the organization needs a premium license, and that can be a hard pill to swallow.
Hmm.
In early days, you weren't getting a lot because that minimum viable product really wasn't there. So in the past 2 years, the offering has improved, and you can see that the product team for the Power Platform is really investing heavily. And when I say the Power Platform, I'm really talking about everything but Power BI. There's still that's still the data platform, but it's obviously one of the founding pillars and core functions that we all use in the Power Platform. So all of this to say that some of the big announcements at Ignite is that managed environments is going to be uh, not split out, but additional managed offerings will come about. One of the first ones is called managed operations. And when you look closely at what it offers, it looks like a subset of some of the existing managed environments. Oh, which I should say, I don't know if it's in any of the blogs that we might share, but it was definitely announced that managed environments
Was
becomes
was there
managed
anything in
governance.
it
So
specifically in here?
don't know if it's in there or not, but it was definitely in the one Ignite session that I attended where they were talking about the changes. So managed environments becomes managed governance. We love changing names with all the Microsoft tools. And then we have those the two other managed collections in operations and security. And a lot of them are like uh, they feel like they're a subset of the original managed environments offering, but they start to grow
Yeah.
and they're definitely more mature. And I think they really speak to a lot of the risk compliance issues that large organizations would have faced. Um,
I think this is it.
as an
And by the way, and just to preface this too, this I still recommend folks go and take a look. As I was just perusing there the table of contents for the book of news, and this is something that Microsoft produces with the Build conference, which is the engineering conference, which is every spring, and then Ignite in the fall. which is more of the IT pro side of things. But this is where you really get the in-depth overview of the major announcements that Microsoft has, and it kind of collects. What I love that they do with this as well is like you go into any one of these topics, um, and they'll tell you like high level about the topic, and then they provide a list of additional resources, blog posts, sessions that were during the conference, articles that you can really start to do your research and get in depth of what they were talking around about that announcement. So love
Do you-
this resource.
yeah, it's huge. You need that Ignite week just to go through all of the
Yeah.
the content in there. Uh, but with the managed operations, what we're seeing is a focus on application lifecycle management, and in the starter kit days and the early days of managed environments, we still had support for pipelines and moving solutions around, but uh, it it's also a reflection of the maturity of where customers are now going with the Power Platform. It's not just this isn't a developer tool. It's not just a maker tool where people are making a report, making a workflow, and then being done with it. No, like large organizations are adopting this as a platform tool of choice, or an empowerment platform of choice for some of their business units. And so, to that end, they need to be able to uh, identify, capture, and be able to support applications that may have started in a business unit area that, whether through importance or some other uh, uh, decision making criteria, are now need to come into a more formal application lifecycle management. And that's where we see that demarcation line between citizen, developer, maker, all the way into like, okay, now you're pro dev, or you've made something that needs to be treated like a professional developer will. And this is what this new managed operations feature is trying to do. So it's not just ALM, because ALM's been there before. There's
Right.
things behind that that give it some meat on those bones, whether it's approvals for pushing changes to production, or checking the underlying solution to make sure that it compiles free of error, even to doing testing, which is net new functionality that we've seen there before. Yeah. One of the other pillars inside of that managed operations is getting like real-time insights into how things are performing. And this is new. This is one of those new areas where uh, if you have, so they're giving us like basic application insights to understand, the volume of opens. Are people having failures of applications opening, and things that they can do to improve that? You start saying things like application insights, and tracking click traffic and opens, rate of opens, and stuff like that. Like, you are 100% in the pro developer space. So again, this is not for the business maker. This is now an IT pro who is built that production or business important, business critical application, and they need to know how it's performing for the user base. So this is one of those other pillars that we're seeing inside of operations for the observability and insights. And finally, some enhancements to data resiliency, which really we're just talking about backups. And inside of backups, um, there's, depending on what you have inside of the Power Platform, you could have as low as 7 days, as high as 30 days. And depending on the licensing or the app that you're using, there's some extensions there. But what we're seeing that's new is that you can change some of that retention to be the maximum available, which still isn't a lot. 28 days is, I mean, it's better than 7 days, but depending on your use case, it doesn't really work. We're also seeing a recycle bin for table records. So, uh, you know, I'm guilty of this. Accidentally delete records when I'm testing all the time. To have a recycle bin to bring those back sure would be handy. And also some long-term retention, which would be very interesting to see for organizations that have a lot of Dataverse storage. Putting
Mhm.
that out to, cheaper cold storage would be very interesting. Uh, it's not unlike stuff that we've seen in other Azure offerings for storage resilience, application insights. I think what we're seeing is managed operations being the thing that starts to help mature Power Platform as an offering because its users are demanding as much.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know, again, this is an area where third parties, I mean, AppPoint has a bunch of very robust offerings in this space as well. So, I mean, a lot of this too is that I know that organizations that have much more mature needs in these areas, they may still look at this and say it's still not enough. We want, we need longer retention. We
Mhm.
need more capability. We need more, for recovery, more in depth, more granular control over this. And you go the third party route. But for a lot of people, I mean, they're excited about seeing this new capability.
Yeah, sure. The other premium offering, it's called Managed Security, uh, and it has things that will help you understand uh, where you might be exposed. And last year, or it could have even been the year before, they released something called Power Platform Advisor. So if you had the premium offering, the admins would get this weekly digest saying like, uh, you can improve your governance stance by doing this, or you have an app that's overshared, or you have an app that's ownerless, or you have a workflow that's been disabled, like all of those things that you should do, and they push to you. And that's awesome. That's like one of the greatest features that I've seen in managed environments, because a lot of Power Platform administrators at the end of the day was like that SharePoint admin who had a workflow tied to a list, and they're like, tag, you're it. And so they don't know what to do. They don't have the time. So I always felt like the advisor functionality in the Power Platform, like the premium offering, was awesome. And I still think that way. So we're
Mhm.
seeing more of this. So inside of the managed security, you start getting those security recommendations. And there's a new Power Platform Admin Center, or PPAC interface, where it shows you all of those things that you can do. And not that you would gamify your governance, but as you can see on the screen that you have like that score, and it on the screen it reads 70%, but you can start taking proactive steps, prescriptive proactive steps from Microsoft to start improving your stance. And I think this is incredibly valuable for organizations who need something to start with. Then they can start addressing their unique governance needs. So having this like run book of things that I need to do is so important. Um,
I mean, Azure has had some of those types of capabilities for a long time with the recommendations, like go do this. There's a lot of, other, solutions, other platforms, non-Microsoft platforms that do
yes.
something around that. And to add on to that, I know there's been a lot of discussion around, when am I going to start having, when are we going to see Copilot for the admin experiences to be able
That's
to
right.
go in and now, I mean, this is even with actions and agents.
Yep. Yep.
I think we're getting very close to having that reality where you can go and ask an agent to, like, what do I need to do? What are the different pieces? Or based on these recommendations, what can I just automate? Go and do these things. Like, you're
Yes.
identifying these areas that need to go and fix. Well, how much of that can just be automated through the agents that are built in, or that I can go and develop agents to go and do those components?
Yeah,
Um,
I love the potential. I love the subject of Copilot Studio agents, especially for the ones that are going to be more configurable in like the SharePoint space. But
mhm.
to answer your question is like, we need that screen to understand, what I need to do for my Copilot readiness. And on the Power Platform side, they do have a new interface, a new screen inside of the PPAC, or the Power Platform Admin Center experience, that just speaks to that. Now, that's not everything that you need, but uh, again, you're going to see a single lens view into what that looks like, and that is something that has been lacking in a lot of the experiences. Whether you're an Exchange administrator working in the Exchange admin tool, you're a SharePoint admin working in the, you know, Lord help you if you are a Teams administrator doing that whole thing. Like you're in all kinds of screens trying to manage that. So Power Platform, at least they recognize that there's that single screen that we need to have. Uh, if we segue out of the governance story, which was something professionally is important for me to follow, uh, the again back to the promise of Copilot and all those things we can do. Those Copilot studio agents and some of the announcements we saw there were very interesting.
Mhm.
Uh, and I see a future where we have a site, a document library full of all of our rich content, excuse me, where we can start having our users build out solutions based on the data that they know without having to get like heavily engaged with IT. And uh, I think it's going to be a really excellent experience. But of course, it's all going to come down to good data and hopefully some good guardrails in place.
Well, I also see that some people there was conversation at so I wasn't at Ignite, but I was at ESPC, and there was conversations around that people have already started to build um, experiment with these agents that you could then go out and sell on a marketplace.
Mhm.
And so they're building these things with the intent of making it pretty fairly easy to go in, plug it into your data, but to go and purchase these agents and run them that that are pre-configured. So I don't know how that stuff would be priced. If I could go take a look at the idea, use Copilot to help recreate just based off the description. Like we'll have to
Mhm.
see how that works, but that idea that you could even internally build a marketplace of agents, have them out there so that as people need those, pull them in and use personal or team or organization wide.
Yep.
Um, Again, to have a co-pilot that can identify what are the co-pilot agents and actions that are out there that I should be using and make recommendations. Um, like we're very close to having that
Yep.
capability.
And again, I'm very much for the promise of what it will bring. I'm also very concerned about effective guardrails being in place for this self-serve ability to create these agents. Some of those guardrails would be around introducing or allowing web-based content to come into that agent where you may have solely thought it was going to be focused on your curated content in that document library.
Yep.
Just a simple checkbox, right? With a couple bad web addresses, and that could lead to some uh, undesirable outcomes. So it's those types of things where I'm like, really need to understand what that playbook is going to look like for our customers, and I think that's going to hit like a tsunami. It's not going to trickle in uh, like a raindrop coming down. No, it's going to hit hard because I think once everyone who's got that Copilot license, they're going to jump on that and start getting their own self-serve solutions in place. And to Microsoft's credit, whether this is the right solution or not, but to unblock that platform, that the announcement that they are including SAM, SharePoint Advanced Management features as a benefit of having a Copilot license, not licensing across the org, means that some organizations will be able to say, "I've got SAM on. I followed what Sam said. I'm good. We should be safe." But you may not entirely be safe until you get some of those very granular guardrails in place around agents.
And on that topic, so I actually sat through Vlad Katrinescu, so fellow MVP. Everybody knows loves that Vlad. So he did a session on SAM and about the SAM licensing. So say you have an organization with 1,000 people, and you have one person who is paying for the license of Copilot. Um, uh, and Microsoft, like we went and validated this. We actually I asked Jeff Teeper when I interviewed him there. This is just a couple of weeks back from this
Yep.
recording, um, and validated this. But yeah, you get SAM for your entire company with each Copilot license. Meaning you don't need to go pay for SAM licensing for 1,000 people. You get it with that one person's Copilot license
Yep. Uh,
because Microsoft, their strategy is they want everyone to have that benefit for that, even for that one Copilot user.
yep.
So yeah, take advantage of that, folks, while you can. I
Yeah.
don't know that
And
they're planning to make any changes there, but yeah,
Sam may not be the fix for everything, but it does show the commitment by which Microsoft is trying to remove blockers for Copilot platform adoption. And that, we were talking in depth about, managed operations inside of Power Platform. And I also wonder if that is going to be a future state where they make that consideration and say, all managed environment features are now just included with any type of Copilot license or something to
yeah,
that effect. Um, and again, that's great for a lot of organizations and probably a lot of common scenarios. Large enterprises, look twice, think twice before assuming that's everything you need.
yeah. Well, I think again, you see the maturity of these solutions. When Microsoft went live with their pricing around their AI capabilities, I mean, we just don't know yet what that cost is going to be. I believe that even if the licensing, the costs don't come down for those pieces, you're going to get more and more that's integrated into it. As an example, Fast, when they bought Fast, they went through that acquisition and it was still a standalone, so the fast search capabilities, it was still a separate offering and very expensive. Then they integrated that in, and there was a premium and a standard version that was part of it. And then eventually it just was fully baked in. It was just part of the base platform.
Hmm.
And so I think that's part of what's going on. They realized SharePoint Advanced Management has to be part of that base platform for anybody that's using Copilot. And so just including that in there. So I mean, this is one of the reasons why it's not that Microsoft is like, hey, everything, there's something new. We're trying to nickel and dime you and add pieces in. It's an evolution in, as it's more and more fully integrated into, that standard platform. It's just it's a process for that to happen. And sometimes it's logically, it just needs to be there and it gets folded in, or other times when it's a nice to have but special, but it's more of a premium service. It's just treated differently. So,
Right.
but anyway, it's a I think things are just changing so quickly. It's why you need to be paying attention to, at the very least, the book of news, the twice a year, and going and following up on those, doing some research and understanding what is it about this announcement? How does this fit in? How does this change the way that we're doing things today?
Yeah. It's interesting. When that book of news would always come out every year, I'd be like, oh, I can't wait to get this feature. Oh, I can't wait to get that functionality. And now I tend to look at it with a different lens. And that lens is, okay, now I need to know now I need to start readjusting my planning 6 months, 12 months out, maybe even 18 months out to know if something I'm planning for now should be built, should be bought versus should I wait? And I think people should have a similar view of that. Don't chase features, chase the functionality that you really desire, really need, and to know if it's worth the wait.
Yeah, that's always the question. That's the
Mhm.
yeah. So there's the build versus buy, but there's the native versus the third party. There's a bunch of different factors there. But when you're grounded in here's what the business needs,
Right.
then you're not tied to a version, a set of features, or whatever that is. It's, yeah, focus on what your business needs first, not what somebody's trying to sell you.
Yeah, it's true. So, again, this is your third talk on Ignite announcements. Uh, I spent that whole week just filtering through the barrage of information to find out just the stuff that was going to be relevant for me here and now. There's so much excitement for the potential of Copilot still. I'm not just saying that because I'm some Microsoft fanboy. Like, there really is. I use it every day and I see it. Organizations busier than ever trying to keep up with things as well. So I hope they use the book of business as a planning tool. I hope they also realize that things like SAM and managed environments or SharePoint, Power Platform, Copilot enablement could be really good steps forward. But in all cases, their unique needs still need to be represented in the final solution that they use for their enablement across these platforms.
Yep. Well, Norm, really appreciate your insights. I know that, so we'll probably get together again in about a month and a half, and then the new year, we'll see what new announcements drop with the calendar year. As much as we were told that this was going to be just a massive year of announcements, kind of in every category. I mean, I think, again, talking with Jeff Teeper, around on the collaboration side of things, he said, yeah, 2025 is going to be even bigger. It's like, okay. Yeah. There's a lot that's happening, a lot that's changing, especially around the AI space, so much that's happening with Copilot. So it's going to be, I think a year from now, we'll have a very different perspective on things and a better understanding of the business ROI of a lot of the things that we're seeing announced right now. So that's always exciting to see. I love when there's business justification. It's not just cool technology, but hey, there's actual value here.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah. Well, Norm, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Christian. Happy holidays to everyone. Happy New Year.
You've been listening to the CollabTalk Podcast. New episodes are published weekly, and you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and most other podcast platforms. Thanks for listening.